Welcome to today's webinar titled Conflict Resolution, Ages 13 to 16, A Caregiver's Guide. We are thrilled to have Tierra Ward with us today. Tierra Ward studied at Liberty University and holds a master's degree in counseling and a bachelor's degree in psychology with an emphasis in substance abuse counseling. Over the past 8 years, she has worked with parents of severely autistic children. She has also served as a clinician for adolescents and adults who struggle with a wide range of mental health issues. She currently serves in the role of triage, special needs, and peer-to-peer support consultant at Military OneSource. Tierra is passionate about assisting families. She is an Army brat U.S. Navy veteran and a former military spouse. When Miss Ward is not assisting military members, she can be found creating music with her band in Virginia. Without further delay, I will turn things over to Tierra Ward.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for that introduction. Okay, like you said, my name's Tierra, and I like to start by reading a disclaimer to y'all. The appearance of hyperlinks does not constitute endorsements by the Department of Defense of this website or the information, products, or services contained therein. For other than authorized activities such as military exchanges, morale, welfare, and recreation sites, the Department of Defense does not exercise any editorial control over the information you may find at these locations. Such links are provided consistent with the stated purpose of this Department of Defense-sponsored webinar. So, now that we've gotten that out the way, like Stan mentioned, we are going to talk today about conflict resolution ages 13 to 16, a caregiver's guide. Some of the objectives include understanding conflict, tips for addressing conflict, communication guidelines, ground rules for handling conflict, problem solving, and at the end we'll talk a little bit about some resources that may be available to you when assisting or working with people that are struggling with conflicts or adolescents more so. So like I said, we're talking about conflict. What is conflict? Well, conflict in a nutshell is when people disagree on an issue or they just don't get along well. Conflict truly is a part of life, and honestly, if you live long enough, you'll all experience it at some point, again and again and again. People respond on the basis of their perception. Conflict doesn't have to be a bad thing. It creates the potential to understand another person's perception. Understanding conflict includes conflicts are a normal part of life. Conflicts present an opportunity for growth. When working through a conflict, good problem-solving skills are essential. Communication guidelines are important when working through conflicts. All too often, small incidents and minor disagreements can lead to serious violence among teens. Communication guidelines are so important when attempting to resolve a conflict in a respectful manner. Some of the guidelines for conflict, they include don't escalate along with teens. Remain calm and speak in a soft, moderate tone. You want to invite everybody to sit down and even allow time for cooling off if necessary. You want to respect everyone's personal space, no matter the age. Assure the teen that you are interested in hearing what they have to say. Treat the teen with respect and teach them to treat you with respect. Use I statements. You want to be specific and avoid terms like always, never, everyone, and nobody. You want to listen attentively. You know, flared tempers, word exchanges, and violence, they can come when there's a disrespectful situation as it relates to conflict. For this reason, that's why we establish ground rules and even communication guidelines. Unfortunately, some teens see fighting as the only way to resolve a disagreement. For this reason, we must set the stage to resolve the conflict by agreeing to try to work together to find a peaceful solution. You'll see the groundwork established respect, grace, and fairness as it relates to handling the conflict. You want to suggest possibly one person talks at a time. Each person speaks for himself or for herself. No fighting. These are very important ground rules when there's been a conflict to arise. You want to encourage them to understand that no emotional or verbal abuse, such as name-calling, hurtful personal attacks, profanity, ignoring or berating, that is not acceptable. An example of that, an example of one of the reasons why it's so important to establish the ground rules at the front end is, say, for instance, if you have an older child and a younger child arguing, and if you've not established the ground rules, you may come across a situation of the older child saying to the younger child, "Well, Dad, he was acting like a biscuit," and so that's a jab that the older child gets in on the younger child. But if the rules have been established on the front end, then there's no name calling at all. That's the hope. You want to discuss only one issue at a time. When addressing a conflict, don't bring up old issues and don't allow them to bring up old issues. No blaming of others. Use good eye contact. You want to take time out if needed to agree on a time to follow up. Once the stage is set and the ground rules are laid, you'll want to gather perspectives. Gathering perspectives gives both parties the opportunity to describe the issue from his or her perspective without interruption. You see, listeners have the opportunity to pay close attention and establish clarifying questions in a non-threatening manner. They consider not only what the teen wants, but why they want it. For example, if you tell your teenager, "Hey, we're preparing for a PCS move, so get in alignment," and you've already moved several times within their 14 or 16 years of life, the resistance to comply with the move, it may not be rooted in the actual move. It may be rooted in the lack of acknowledgement of the stress that this move is causing the teen. So, for instance, the teen may be lashing out, but the root of the issue may possibly be, Mom, the service member, she don't care about me. Or Dad, the service member, don't care that I'm leaving all of my friends for another career or PCS move. You want to identify problem solving. Ask the teen to talk about his or her view of the problem, and then tell your view. Talk with the teen about what he or she said or did, and then explain what he said or did in creating the problem. You want to have each person describe how they feel, and have them describe how they think the others are feeling. You want to brainstorm solutions and list as many possible options. Choose one solution, try the solution, get together later, and discuss whether or not the solution works. You'll also want to find common interests and establish which facts and issues that everyone can agree on, and identify common interests, which can be as simple as having the mutual desire to resolve the issue. This not only creates the space to start out on the same accord, but it also models an example of problem solving. Problem solving includes modeling good behavior, solving behavior for teenagers, talking out loud in front of them. It is helpful for teenagers to see adults express their feelings in an appropriate way. Help teenagers label their feelings and express them appropriately. An example of this, so if you're friends with your children on Facebook, that's really not the space for you to post negativity or just post things that are unhealthy in regards to communicating with others. They see that, and sometimes they mimic that. It's important for teens to understand that strong feelings do not excuse disrespectful behavior. So emotions are not bad, and we all are entitled to feel whatever we feel. How we act in response to those feelings, that's what's important. As an adult, you want to create options. Brainstorm with possible solutions to the problem. Come up with a list of options without immediately judging them. Try to think of options where everyone is gaining something, sort of like a win-win scenario. In the example where the teen was struggling with the PCS move, once the adult has understood the teen's perspective, both parties can discuss options that ensure that the teen's concerns are heard. If the frustration that occurred is leaving the teen with feeling like their friends are being left behind, their life as they know it is over, maybe you both can agree a win-win situation using social media, traveling, Skyping, FaceTime. Those are all potential options to keep the teen connected, and so that you can maybe talk it out and agree that, once again, that's a win-win situation or scenario. You want to guide teens to use problem-solving skills through questions such as, what can I do? I am confused. Explain it to me. How could you solve that problem? How are you going to solve this problem? What's the first step? Then what do you do? Okay, now what's the next step? You know, one of the things that my mom used to say to me when I was a teenager, Tiara, you're closer to being an adult than you are a child. So you have to start thinking for yourself. So this is an opportunity to help the teen to begin to process, problem solve, and even think for his or herself. The next step is to evaluate options. This means that there'll be a process to agree or disagree about the concern or concerns in order to reach common ground. Help teens understand that everyone's point of view is important. Encourage the teens to put themselves in the other person's shoes to understand how they are feeling. And use this to create a platform for agreeing or agreeing to disagree. The teen should be able to state the agreement and write it down. Both parties may want to set a date and check back to see how the agreement is working. Sometimes with teens, follow-up is the best thing, or one of the best things. When teens use an approach to resolve conflict, they find that conflicts don't need to escalate or be avoided. Conflict can be positive. It can help them to take a close look at themselves, their attitudes, and beliefs. Conflict truly is inevitable, and it provides an opportunity for growth. Good problem-solving skills are essential and will provide teens with a lifelong benefit. Adults are powerful role models and can look for opportunities to allow teens to learn more from their example. So does anyone have any questions?
We do have a couple of questions. Are conflicts ever helpful?
They are helpful. And once again, conflicts aren't necessarily a bad thing. We can all grow from conflicts. You have an opportunity to see the perspective of another person, or see the perspective, or help another person to see your perspective. They aren't necessarily bad, and they can help one another grow. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay.
Next question. Why do teens create so many conflicts with each other? Is it just their age?
You know what? That's a good question. Sometimes it can be hormonal. There's a lot of changes that occur when it comes to teens. And then you want to compound the fact that sometimes, well, I'll speak for myself, I was an Army brat. And so the stressors that I would go so far as to say that regular teens experience that are out in the civilian side and not in base schools, their issues are compounded because mom or dad can potentially be deployed. So sometimes children are given roles, or teenagers are given roles. There are just so many different factors involved when it comes to teens who are within the military community, as well as just teens in general. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
The question was, why do teens cause so much conflict with each other? Is it just their age?
I don't think it's their age necessarily. I just think that the times, life, just different factors involved. some teens, they don't experience as much conflict as other teens. So, yeah, maybe just not to blanket it, but there's just a lot of different factors involved. Partnered with social media, bullying, just a lot of different factors involved.
Okay, thanks. At this time, there are no other questions that have come in. So I want to thank you, Tierra Ward, for sharing your invaluable experience and expertise. I would like to thank our audience for attending today's webinar. If you find yourself having questions after the webinar is over, please email moswebinars@military1source.com, and I'll send the questions over to Tierra, and we'll get an answer back to you as soon as we can. This concludes today's webinar on conflict resolution, ages 13 to 16, a caregiver's guide. Thank you all for attending, and have a great day.